Hello, my fellow readers of Dark Symphony 777 with another pair of fan fiction reviews. As always, a link to these stories will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications. Leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the stories. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, this time, I am reviewing two stories, Griffin Over the Line by Emerald Bookwise and Ill Communication by RK Striker JK5. These are part of the Luniverse. The reason I am doing these two stories together, despite the fact they are written by separate authors, unlike the previous two stories, which were both written by the same author, is twofold. One, these stories are really, really short. They're both around less than 15,000. I finished these in like less than an hour each. And two, these stories are probably the weakest stories in the entire first season of the Luniverse, at least from a review standpoint. I think there are one or two readings that are probably weaker. In the previous story, the Winter Wrap-Up story is probably weaker than either of these. However, that's not indicative of these stories being bad. It's just compared to the rest of the stories I've reviewed before and all the stories I'm going to review afterwards, these are definitely stand out as, bar none, the weakest. So, let's get started. So, a good thing to note about these stories is they're actually both based off two existing episodes in Friendship is Magic. They are based off episode 5, season 1 of My Little Pony, Griffin the Brush Off, and then Swarm of the Century, which is episode 10, season 1 of Friendship is Magic. So they're taking season 1 episodes and just adapting them in a different way. And you'll see why I wanted to lump in the stories once I get to the actual meat of the story, which is these stories aren't really that developed in terms of developments from the wider season. I hope that makes sense. But let's start with Griffin Over the Line. So the story follows Raindrops. Raindrops is basically trying to do Rainbow Dash's job. However, she finds out that Rainbow Dash is lollygagging and basically just doing a spree of pranks with Gilda, who's visiting from Griffinstone, from the Griffin Empire, and hanging out with Rainbow Dash. And that's basically the plot. Yes, that is more or less the plot. Oh, that's kind of sad. That's kind of sad that I can't really go into. Yeah, that's kind of the big deal with these two stories. They're basically more or less. This Griffin Over the Line is more or less just kind of a repeat of Griffin the Brush Off. Kind of, not really, but kind of. Where they basically just start goofing off and they're pranking everyone. The story is basically just mostly pranks. Them pranking people. They prank Charlie. They try to prank Ditzy, but Ditzy's is Ditzy, and so she doesn't even realize she's being pranked. And even they kind of highlight that. It's like, yeah, I told you she would be too stupid to prank. It's like, yeah, you're right. Gilda offers to prank Fluttershy. However, Rainbow Dash says no Fluttershy allowed, because if you do that, that's going to be a dick move. But she agrees. Meanwhile, Raindrop is constantly trying to control her anger over and over again, and even tries to get Trixie into it. It's like, well, Trixie's like, well, it's pranks. You can't really do anything for the pranks to Luna. And then Trixie gets pranked, and then she's, oh, now it's personal. And so they actually do a sort of swerve where it's implied that Trixie actually tries to do the same thing that Twilight did in Griffin the Brush Off by basically staging the whole big plan to make Gilda and Rainbow Dash not be friends anymore. However, Raindrops pretty much puts a stop to that and says, no, let's just beat the daylights out of them. It's like, but that's not really worth it. And then they just basically prank more people Granted, unlike the original series, they don't prank. Gilda doesn't inadvertently prank Fluttershy. Then Rainbow Dash basically has to stop a fight from breaking out between Raindrops and Gilda. Raindrops, having none of it, quits, and they basically just go at it. Like, they beat the living deaths each other for a little bit. Gilda says, "Oh, that was fun. We should do it again. Goodbye," and basically just leaves Ponyville. And Rainbow Dash then says, "Oh, welcome back. Well, I'll see you on Monday." And Rainbow Dash just solemnly goes, "All right, I'll see you Monday." And of course, the story actually ends with Trixie playing a prank on Rainbow Dash by basically bleaching her hair white. Oh, that's some good stuff. Yeah, like I said, there's a very specific reason why I'm lumping these two stories together. This is why there's not really a lot to talk about in terms of the characters and in terms of the plot, because the only thing we got from characters for this story is Raindrops has an anger issue, and Gilda kind of likes Raindrops for respecting her for like actually putting up a fight. Yeah, this is also where we get the moment. No, that was Longest Night, Longest Day that we showed. Raindrops is like really, really strong, by Earth Pony standards. But yeah, this is like, there's not much to go on with this story. There's just not a lot. It's good for what it's trying to do, because it's even like the events that are supposed to mirror, they're happening in different ways. Like, in Brush Off, they basically make Rainbow Dash and Gilda hate each other. But in this version, that plan's immediately shut down, because that'd be a bad plan, and anyone who decides to do it is a bad person, right, Twilight? Or should I say, right, Pinky? It's been a while. I haven't seen that episode in a long time, so I can't remember if it was Twilight who came up with the plan or it was Pinky who came up with the plan. No, I'm pretty sure that was actually meant to be a party, and that was just inadvertently turned into a plan that kind of just happened. Yeah, my memory's bad at that. It's just so bad. But yeah, that's the plot, and that's pretty much the characters too. There's like nothing with the characters. There's just, okay, so Rainbow Dash, she's just playing pranks on people. So is Gilda. Okay, and Rainbow Dash, she's mad, and Trixie kind of shows that, despite the fact that she's getting better, she's still Trixie. She like, anyone pisses her off, she's gonna say, "Nah, it's personal." Like, but you said not to get involved. Nah, they pranked me. Now I'm getting involved because they pranked you. Yes. Okay. And then we get Ill Communication. This, I think, is actually the better / worse of the stories. Both of these stories, I will say this, both of these stories do have meaning later in the series. Griffin Line, that won't come into play until season 2, where they actually travel to other kingdoms, because this one kind of ties into when they go to the Griffin Empire, and Ill Communication kind of ties into at the Grand Goblin Gala, the whole deal with Blue Blood. That's kind of how, Blue Blood's kind of going to become like the front guy for the Night Court until we're introduced to Greengrass. But at this point, we only got Blue Blood. I think after the story, we're introduced to Blue Blood as like a sort of front man. I think not this story, but I think this story. No, not this story. This story. Yeah, this story. And we're kind of introduced to Blue Blood. But yeah, this is based off Swarm of the Century. This is the episode with the Parasprites. And I actually like the late little twists, because this one kind of I think this one's meant to highlight, like, and I'm completely guessing, this author did not particularly like that episode, because more or less the same thing kind of happens at the beginning with the Parasprites actually getting to Ponyville, but this one's kind of like accidental. This is not like Fluttershy finding the Parasprites cute and then just they blowing out of control. they do a job with Fluttershy, and then the parent sprites kind of just hop into a basket that she gives them, and then they just swarm in Ditsy Doo's house and manage to escape and start eating Ponyville. But what happens after that is where the change happens. Trixie actually spots Pinkie glaring at the Parasprites, and basically saying, "Oh, now I gotta go find a banjo," and just running off. Why is this important? Well, in Swarm of the Century, at least, thankfully, I remember this episode, unlike Brush Off, where a big point of the episode, or at least a big point where a lot of people didn't particularly like, is the fact that despite the whole lesson being that, make sure to listen to people, where they add something because in the episode, everyone kind of ignores Pinkie because she keeps saying, "Oh, now I gotta find this instrument. Now I gotta find this instrument," and everyone's just kind of blowing her off. The whole lesson is that you're supposed to listen to the person if they offer a weird advice, because you never know where it might come in. A lot of people, I think, didn't particularly like how that lesson was handled because it was specific. A lot of people didn't like the fact that it was specifically Pinkie that did it, because it's Pinkie. She's always doing weird stuff, so they didn't think too hard on it. I don't know. I just know a lot of people didn't particularly like the execution of the lesson that it was trying to tell. But in this version, Trixie immediately cottons on to the fact that, hey, Pinkie knows something about these things. We gotta find her. So Trixie, with the help of Raindrops, basically start hunting Pinkie down. They find out that, well, Lyra has a bunch of instruments. Sooner or later, she's gonna hit up that place. So let's get her there, and let's basically confront her. And we get a funny moment where where Raindrops goes into the second floor. They basically said, well, they locked all the doors and they blocked all the house, and then she just randomly appeared there. So we don't know what happened. Because it's Pinkie Pie. She does things you don't understand. Nobody understands the power that is Pinkie Pie. But yeah, Trixie manages to get into the house. He manages to confront Pinkie, and then Pinkie reveals that, yes, she does know the Parasprites, and she does know how to deal with them. And they basically said, well, actually, instead of trying to go things on your own, wouldn't it have been better to just, I don't know, ask someone? This is basically just a response to, the whole idea that the execution of Swarm of the Century was handled really, really badly. Like I said, this is just my thought. I just think that's might have what happened. And so, Pinkie reveals that when she grew up, since the whole Sonic Rainbow thing never happened, so she basically got the party thing a different way. And basically, her living on the farm, it basically taught her the idea that no one really listens to her. So she basically learned to talk to people and just never listen. So basically, she always talks to herself, talks to inanimate objects like the rocks and stuff. And since no one ever listened to her, that basically taught her, it's well, no one, it's better to talk, and because no one's going to listen to me anyway. Basically an inverse of how Pinkie is in the canon. It's actually really interesting because it's still Pinkie, but it's just the inverse of Pinkie. Like I said in my review of Longest Night, Longest Day, she's hollow laughter. She's basically trying to make people smile without trying to listen to people and what would make them happy. Hollow laughter. And basically after that, they basically get some of the musicians. They have a little parade, and they lead the Parasprites out of Ponyville. And that's very much the plot. And even Pinkie Pie learned something. It's well, maybe I should listen. Oh, yes! You should have happened in the episode. So yeah, that's basically the plot of both stories. Character development. Raindrops gets some character development. We find out that she has the anger. She can't really control her anger that well. She does have a limit. And then Pinkie Pie, we just learn with Pinkie Pie, she learns that sometimes you should listen to people instead of just talking over them. And try to make him happy without understanding what might not make him happy or not. It's just it's muddled. These are weak. These, like I said, these are the weakest stories of the entire season one. They're not bad. I would recommend ill communication. Yeah, we're skipping pacing because again, pacing and grammar error, they're going to be kind of over the wayside. But if you want to know, pacing's good. They're short. They're really just they're like the epitome of like episode, like the episodes that feel the most like an episode. So even the pacing reflects that. I would recommend ill communication. Griffin over the line. The fact that you have to wait until like season 2 to figure out to at least figure out what the whole point of Gilda is kind of does dampen things. With ill communication, you at least don't have to go that far because it's still a far enough way. Like we're okay, so I'm here with these two, and then I'm gonna do these two. We have all of this, and it's not until here. There were like 21, 22 stories later that we figure out what the whole point of this story is supposed to be. You know what? Let's err on the side of caution. Yeah, I would recommend both. Like I said, they're the weakest stories of all season one. They're not bad, but I think they're okay. They are. But if I had to give a chance and cut like any stories from the Looniverse canon, it'd probably be these two stories. Hence why I'm doing both of them at the same time. They're just really bland. They're just really not anything interesting. I mean, but I would probably cut these. These are probably the ones I'm most likely to cut if I could cut any of the bigger stories. Yeah, that's just me. I don't really have anything else to say about this story, so I'll see you next time. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.